The Galactic Exploration Council, GEC, was the most powerful organization in the universe. It was formed by the oldest and smartest alien civilizations, those who had mastered space travel and ruled the stars for thousands of years. The GEC had only one goal: to explore, document, and control the unknown parts of the galaxy. For centuries, the Council had searched the void, mapping planets and discovering new species. Some planets were rich with life, full of peaceful creatures. Others were dangerous, home to deadly predators. But no matter how dangerous a world seemed, the GEC always found a way to control it. Until now, a new planet had appeared on their deep space scanners. It had no official name, only a cold scientific designation: X-34b. At first, the scientists thought it was just another lifeless rock floating in space, but when the first detailed scans arrived, the entire GEC fell silent. X-34b was no ordinary world. It was a Class X death world, a category so rare that only a handful of planets in the galaxy held such a title. The data was terrifying. The planet's gravity was stronger than most species could handle. Its atmosphere was filled with poisonous gases, and its weather was unpredictable, with storms powerful enough to tear apart entire mountains. The surface was crawling with monstrous creatures, each more dangerous than the last. The GEC knew that no known species could live there. Even the toughest warriors from the warlike Krax Empire wouldn't last a week on such a world. It was the most dangerous planet ever recorded. The Council held an emergency meeting. The greatest minds of the galaxy gathered in a massive hall, their holographic images flickering in the dim light. The leader of the meeting, a tall, insect-like creature named Chairman Vork, spoke in a grave voice. "This planet is beyond anything we have seen before," he said. "No species, no civilization, no army could possibly survive there." The council members murmured in agreement. Some suggested that the planet should be left alone, forgotten. Others believed it should be studied from a safe distance. But one thing was certain: no intelligent life could possibly exist on X-34b. Or so they thought. Just as the council was about to move on, a new report arrived. A junior officer rushed into the hall, his voice shaking. "Sir, there's something else," he said, handing a datapad to Chairman Vork. The room fell silent as Vork examined the report. His eyes widened in shock. "Impossible," he whispered. On the screen was an image taken from the planet's surface. It showed a structure, tall, metallic, and artificial. It was not a natural formation. It was a building. The council members gasped in disbelief. "This must be a mistake," shouted one of the scientists. "No civilization could survive there." But the data didn't lie. And then another report came in, this one even more shocking. A radio signal had been detected, coming from the planet's surface. It was weak, but it was intelligent communication. Someone, or something, was already there. The council was in chaos. How was this possible? What kind of species could survive on a death world? Who had dared to claim the most dangerous planet in the galaxy before the mighty GEC? The answer came moments later when the language of the radio signal was translated. The words appeared on the screen, written in a language unknown to most of the council members. But a few recognized it instantly. It was the language of a species the GEC had mostly ignored, a small and insignificant race that had only recently begun to explore space. The transmission read, "This is the Perdition Colony. Humans reporting in." For the first time in history, the Galactic Exploration Council felt something they had never experienced before: fear. The Galactic Exploration Council, GEC, was in shock. A human colony on the deadliest planet in the galaxy. It was impossible. Humans were not known as a strong species. They had no advanced technology like the Zorvans. They had no natural weapons like the warlike Krax Empire. They were not the strongest, fastest, or smartest. And yet, they were there. Chairman Vork sat in his grand chamber, staring at the report in front of him. He could hear the whispers of the council members behind him. Fear, confusion, disbelief. For thousands of years, the GEC had been the first to explore and claim new worlds. No species had ever beaten them to a planet, especially not a death world like X-34b. But now, humans had done the impossible. Vork's sharp claws tapped against the metal table as he turned to face the council. His voice was cold and serious. "We need answers," he said. "Send a scout ship. I want to know how humans are surviving there." The room fell silent. Nobody wanted to go, but orders were orders. The mission begins. The Vindicator, a sleek silver scout ship, was sent toward X-34b. Its mission was simple: scan the surface, study the humans, and report back. The ship's commander, K-Ver, was a veteran explorer from the reptilian Veloth species. He had seen many dangerous planets, but nothing like this. As the Vindicator approached the Death World, the crew felt uneasy. Even from space, the planet looked violent. Giant storms moved across the surface like angry beasts. Volcanoes erupted in the distance, sending rivers of fire across the land. The ocean was wild, its dark waters crashing against jagged cliffs. K-Ver activated the scanners. His golden eyes narrowed as he read the data. Strange. The human colony was fully operational. The buildings were standing, their defenses intact. There were no signs of struggle or weakness. The humans were not just surviving. They were thriving. "How is this possible?" one of the Veloth officers whispered. "No species should be able to live there." But then, something even more disturbing happened. A warning appeared on the ship's screen. A transmission. The human transmission. "This is Commander Ben of Perdition Colony," a deep voice said through the speakers. "Unidentified ship, you are entering human-controlled airspace. Identify yourself immediately." K-Ver felt his scales tighten. They knew we were coming. The GEC was used to being the superior force. Most primitive species had no way to detect them, but these humans had spotted them before they even landed. K-Ver activated the communicator. "This is Commander K-Ver of the Galactic Exploration Council. We are here to study this planet." There was silence for a moment. Then Ben spoke again. His voice was calm, but there was something unsettling about it. "Study it all you want," Ben said, "but don't make the mistake of thinking we're weak." The transmission ended. K-Ver stared at the screen, his claws tightening around the control panel. Humans had just warned a Galactic Council scout ship. No species had ever dared to speak like that before. Landing on the Death World. Despite the warning, the mission had to continue. The Vindicator descended into the atmosphere. Instantly, the ship was hit by powerful winds. The crew struggled to maintain control. After a rough landing, K-Ver and his team stepped onto the surface of X-34b. The air was thick and heavy. The ground trembled beneath their feet as distant explosions shook the land. Suddenly, the team's sensors beeped. Movement. K-Ver turned his head and saw them. A group of humans, wearing heavy armor, stood at the edge of the jungle. Their weapons were unlike anything K-Ver had ever seen. Compact, efficient, and deadly. The humans watched the aliens with calm, steady eyes. They were not afraid. One of the humans, a tall man with a scar on his face, stepped forward. He looked at K-Ver and gave a small smile. "Didn't expect company," he said. K-Ver felt a cold chill run down his spine. The most dangerous planet in the galaxy, and these humans looked comfortable. The Galactic Council had made a mistake. They had assumed humans were weak. But now, for the first time, the Council realized the truth. Humans were not the ones in danger. They were the danger. K-Ver had seen many things in his long career as a scout for the Galactic Exploration Council, GEC. He had walked on frozen worlds where the air could shatter bones. He had explored planets covered in lava, where the ground itself was alive. He had even faced creatures so dangerous that entire armies had been wiped out trying to capture them. But nothing compared to this. Humans were here. Not hiding. Not struggling. Living. Thriving. The wind howled across the deadly landscape of X-34B, but the humans didn't seem to care. The one in front, the tall man with the scar, stood with his arms crossed. His team of armored soldiers remained calm, their weapons at their sides. They showed no signs of fear. Kever's team, on the other hand, was tense. His Valoth warriors were some of the toughest in the galaxy, but even they were nervous. The planet itself felt wrong, too violent, too unstable. Yet the humans looked comfortable. Kever stepped forward carefully. His reptilian eyes locked onto the humans. "I am Commander Kever of the Galactic Exploration Council," he said. "We are here to study this world." The human gave a small smile. "Study all you want," he said. "Just don't get yourselves killed." Kever frowned. "This planet is classified as a Class X death world," he said. "How are you?" "Alive." The human shrugged. "Name's Ben," he said. "Commander of Perdition Colony. And as for how we're alive..." He glanced at the raging storms in the distance, the massive creatures moving through the jungle, the unstable cliffs ready to collapse at any moment. Then he looked back at Kever and grinned. "We're human. The impossible colony." Ben led Kever's team through the settlement. Kever expected to see suffering, malnourished workers, struggling defenses, chaos. Instead, he saw order. The colony was well built. Strong walls surrounded the base, reinforced with a strange metal that Kever's scanners couldn't identify. Automated turrets watched the jungle, tracking every movement. The humans moved efficiently, working together without panic. Kever saw engineers repairing a damaged outpost in the middle of a lightning storm. A group of workers unloaded supplies while two massive creatures, each larger than a starship, fought in the distance. The humans barely glanced at them. One of Kever's officers whispered, "They act like this is normal." It didn't make sense. Other species would need generations to adapt to such a hostile world. But the humans, they had only been here for a few years. "How long have you been on this planet?" Kever asked. Ben chuckled. 5 years. Kever's eyes widened. "Impossible," he said. "Your species is not built for this environment. The storms, the gravity, the predators. No other race could survive here without advanced technology." Ben nodded. "Yeah, we heard all that before," he said. "When we first landed, the planet nearly killed us. Half our team was wiped out in the first month." Kever's officers looked at each other. So the humans had struggled. Ben continued, "But we learned. We adapted. That's what we do." The human advantage. Kever studied the colony again. Humans were smaller than most species in the GEC. They didn't have natural weapons like claws or venom. Their bones were weaker than the Veloth. Their eyesight was worse than the Zorvans. And yet, they had something else. They never stopped. Other species would have fled, but humans stayed. They studied the storms, built stronger defenses, and turned the planet into their home. Kever turned to Ben. "You did not claim this planet for power, did you?" Ben shook his head. "Nope. This place. It's not a colony. It's a training ground." Kever's scales tightened. Training. For what? Ben's smile grew wider. For whatever comes next. The realization hit Kever like a cold wave. The GEC had sent an expedition to study a death world, thinking it was a place too dangerous for life. But to humans, it was a test. They weren't just surviving. They were getting stronger. And for the first time, Kever wondered if the most dangerous thing on this planet wasn't the planet itself. It was the humans. Kever had seen many strange things in his time as a scout for the Galactic Exploration Council, GEC, but nothing compared to this. Humans were not just surviving on X-34B. They were thriving. For most species, this planet would be a death sentence. The extreme gravity would crush their bodies. The poisonous air would rot their lungs. The storms would tear them apart. But the humans, they had adapted. Ben, the human commander, led HFY and his team deeper into Perdition Colony. Everywhere they looked, the aliens saw the impossible. A group of engineers was repairing a communications tower, while a hurricane raged in the distance. A squad of soldiers jogged past them, wearing heavy gear, moving like the gravity didn't bother them at all. Near the colony's edge, HFY saw two workers wrestling with a massive armored creature that looked strong enough to tear a starship in half. The humans won. It didn't make sense. Other species needed hundreds of years to adapt to new environments. Yet humans had landed here just 5 years ago, and now they were acting like they owned the place. HFY finally turned to Ben. "How?" he asked. "How do you survive here?" Ben smirked. "We don't just survive," he said. "We learn." The training grounds. Ben led HFY's team to an open field outside the colony's walls. It was a brutal landscape. Uneven, rocky ground with black clouds rolling in overhead. "This is one of our training zones," Ben explained. "We use it to prepare for real combat." HFY frowned. "Combat? Against who?" Ben's smile didn't fade. "Doesn't matter. We train for everything." HFY's officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had studied humans before. They knew that humans were strange, but this was something different. Ben turned to one of his soldiers, a woman with a scar running down her arm. "Samantha, we're giving our guests a demonstration." Samantha nodded and tapped a device on her wrist. A loud roar shook the ground. HFY's team tensed, gripping their weapons as something huge stepped out of the jungle. It was a predator, 3 times the size of a human, covered in armored scales, with glowing red eyes. "Meet a razor beast," Ben said casually, "one of the deadliest creatures on the planet." HFY had read about them in the GEC's files. Razor beasts were unstoppable monsters. Their hide was tougher than steel. Their claws could tear through reinforced plating. Even high-energy plasma weapons struggled to bring them down. The beast growled, fixing its gaze on Samantha. HFY took a step back. "We should retreat." Ben raised a hand. "Watch." Samantha didn't move as the razor beast charged. In a blur of motion, she dodged left, then right. The beast swung its massive claws, but she was faster. Then, in one swift motion, she leaped onto its back, wrapped her arms around its thick neck, and snap! The razor beast collapsed. HFY stared in stunned silence. Samantha stood over the beast, wiping sweat from her brow. The other humans clapped and cheered. Ben grinned. "Not bad, right?" HFY's mind raced. This was not normal. No species should be able to do this, not in just 5 years. One of HFY's officers whispered, They're stronger than we thought." HFY could only nod. The unsettling truth. As they walked back to the colony, Ben spoke. "You asked how we survive here," he said. "The answer is simple. We don't just adapt to our environment. We make the environment adapt to us." HFY finally understood. The storms, the gravity, the predators. The humans didn't see them as threats. They saw them as challenges. And if humans could conquer this world, then what else were they capable of? For the first time, HFY wasn't just curious about humans. He was afraid of them. HFY had seen enough. He had come to X-34B expecting to find a struggling human colony, on the verge of collapse, begging for help. Instead, he had found something far more terrifying. Humans were not just surviving on this death world. They were mastering it. Ben led HFY and his team back into Perdition Colony. HFY's mind raced with everything he had witnessed. A human soldier had taken down a razor beast, one of the most feared creatures in the known galaxy. Workers repaired structures in the middle of deadly storms. Soldiers trained under extreme gravity without even slowing down. Vere had never seen anything like it. As they walked through the settlement, Ben spoke. "You seem uneasy," he said. Vere's tail flicked, an unconscious sign of tension. "Your species should not be able to survive here," he admitted. "And yet, you have not only survived, you have become stronger." Ben chuckled. "That's what humans do." Vere stopped walking. "I do not understand. Other species take generations to adapt to hostile worlds. You have done it in 5 years. How?" Ben sighed and looked up at the dark sky. "You ever heard of Earth?" Vere nodded. "Your homeworld." Ben smirked. "Earth is not an easy place to live. Sure, it's not a death world like this one, but it's not exactly peaceful either." Vere listened carefully as Ben continued. "For millions of years, humans fought for survival. We faced predators bigger and stronger than us. We endured freezing ice ages and burning deserts. We had no claws, no natural armor, no venom." Ben's eyes darkened. "But we had our minds. We learned. We adapted. We never gave up." Vere exhaled slowly. He had read reports on human history, but he had never understood the true meaning of it until now. The truth of the death world. A loud explosion shook the ground. Vere's team instinctively reached for their weapons. Ben, however, barely reacted. A few seconds later, a voice crackled through Ben's communicator. "Commander, another quake took out the west wall. We're already repairing it." Ben responded calmly. "Understood. Keep me updated." Vere's eyes widened. "That was an earthquake." Ben nodded. "Happens all the time. We just rebuild." Vere could hardly believe what he was hearing. The humans weren't afraid of the planet's dangers. They treated them like minor inconveniences. "How many disasters have you faced here?" Vere asked. Ben shrugged. "Lost count after the first 100. Vere felt a chill run through him. Most species would have abandoned this planet after one disaster. Humans had survived hundreds, and they were still standing. The final lesson. As they walked past the training grounds, Vere noticed a young human, no older than 20, lifting heavy metal plates with ease. His arms shook, sweat dripped from his face, but he didn't stop. Vere observed the determination in the young soldier's eyes. He turned to Ben. "Why do you push yourselves so hard? You have conquered this world. What more is there to prove?" Ben's smile faded. "Because we don't know what's coming next." Vere's scales tightened. "What do you mean?" Ben sighed. "The universe is big. We're not the strongest, the fastest, or the smartest, but we prepare for everything. One day, we might face something stronger than us, something truly unstoppable." Vere's throat felt dry. "And what will you do then?" Ben's expression turned serious. "We'll do what we've always done. We'll learn, we'll adapt, and we'll win." For the first time, Vere realized the truth. Humans were not the most powerful species in the galaxy, but they were the most dangerous. Because no matter what the universe threw at them, they would always find a way to survive. Vere had seen death worlds before, but never like this. Never with humans. As he followed Ben through Perdition Colony, Vere couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his chest. Everything he had seen so far, the deadly creatures, the crushing gravity, the constant storms, should have made this place unlivable. And yet, humans thrived here. They weren't just surviving. They were training. A message crackled through Ben's communicator. "Commander, the storm's moving in fast. ETA 20 minutes. Ben tapped his wrist device. "Understood. Lock down the outer sections. Move all non-essential personnel inside." Vere's scales tightened. Another storm. Ben smirked. "Not just any storm. You're about to witness a Class 5 superstorm." Vere's team tensed. Superstorms were legendary. Some planets had storms powerful enough to wipe out entire civilizations. "You should evacuate," Vere warned. Ben chuckled. "Evacuate? No, this is an opportunity." Ver stared at him in disbelief. An opportunity. A storm like this could destroy your colony. Ben's grin didn't fade. It could. But if we survive it, we'll be even stronger. That was the human way. Preparing for the worst, Ver followed Ben to the control center. Inside, humans worked quickly but calmly. Large screens displayed weather data, wind speeds far beyond anything Ver had seen before. The colony's automated defenses locked into place. Giant metal barriers rose from the ground, shielding the buildings. Power cores activated, reinforcing the structures with energy fields. Despite the danger, the humans didn't panic. Ver's team, however, was uneasy. One of his officers, Lurvek, leaned in. "Commander, I advise we return to our ship." Ver considered it, but something inside him refused to leave. He wanted to see this. Ben turned to them. "If you want to stay, you'll need to be inside the bunker. The storm's going to hit hard." Ver nodded. "We will stay." Ben smiled. "Good. You might learn something." The arrival of chaos. Minutes later, the sky turned black. Winds roared like a beast, shaking the colony's walls. The ground trembled. Lightning cracked across the sky, bright enough to blind. The storm had arrived. Ver watched through the reinforced windows. Rain hit the ground like bullets. The wind screamed, tearing through anything not bolted down. Any other species would have been terrified. The humans. They were excited. Inside the bunker, Ben stood with his arms crossed, watching the data screens. "Here we go," he muttered. Alarms blared as the storm intensified. Sensors showed winds reaching supersonic speeds. Ver had seen warships torn apart by storms weaker than this. And yet, Perdition Colony held. The defenses remained strong. The buildings stood firm. The power never failed. Then, Ver noticed something even more insane. Outside, on the reinforced platforms, humans were still working. Soldiers braved the storm, adjusting equipment. Engineers reinforced power lines. They moved through the chaos like it was just another day. One soldier lost his balance as the wind lifted him off his feet, only to be caught by another, who anchored them both to the ground. Ver's mind struggled to process what he was seeing. No one else in the galaxy would dare attempt this. No one but humans. After the storm. 2 hours later, the storm finally passed. The sky cleared, revealing the damage. Some outer sections had been torn apart. Several towers had collapsed. But the colony still stood. Ben turned to his officers. "Status." One of them checked a datapad. "Minimal casualties. All systems still operational." Ben nodded. "Good. Get to work on repairs." Just like that, the humans got back to rebuilding. Ver stood in stunned silence. It was over. The storm that should have destroyed them had come and gone, and yet, the humans didn't break. They didn't mourn. They didn't hesitate. They simply got back to work. Ver finally understood. This planet hadn't tamed the humans. The humans had tamed the planet. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying. If humans could endure this, there was nothing in the galaxy that could stop them. Ver stood in the ruins of the colony's outer wall, staring at the humans working around him. The storm had just ended. The wind had been strong enough to tear apart starships. The rain had fallen like molten metal. The ground had shaken as if the planet itself was angry. Yet the humans were already rebuilding. There was no mourning, no hesitation. Engineers repaired broken structures. Soldiers carried supplies. Scientists analyzed weather data, already preparing for the next storm. Ver's officers watched in disbelief. "Commander," Lurvek whispered, "this is unnatural. No species should be able to recover so quickly." Ver silently agreed. He had seen war zones less chaotic than this. But what disturbed him most was that the humans didn't seem to care. They treated destruction like an inconvenience. Ben approached, wiping dirt from his face. "Not bad, right?" he said, grinning. Vere hesitated. Your colony should not have survived. Ben shrugged. We don't have time to die. We have work to do. That was the human way. A sudden threat. Before Vere could respond, a warning alarm blared. Ben's smile vanished. He tapped his communicator. Report. A soldier's voice came through. Commander, we have a situation. Unidentified ships entering the atmosphere. Vere's eyes widened. Hostile forces. Ben's expression darkened. We'll find out. They hurried to the colony's command center. The large screen showed the incoming ships, sleek, black, and moving fast. Vere recognized them instantly. His scales tightened. Pirates, he growled. Ben nodded. Looks like they found us. The attack begins. Seconds later, the sky lit up with energy blasts. The enemy ships fired at the colony, targeting weakened structures. Explosions rocked the ground. Buildings crumbled. The pirates had chosen the perfect moment to strike, right after the superstorm, when the colony was at its weakest. Any other species would have been doomed. But these were humans. Ben didn't waste time. All defensive units, engage. Within seconds, the colony came to life. Automated turrets rose from the ground, firing precise shots at the incoming ships. Soldiers rushed into position, wielding weapons built for extreme environments. Engineers rerouted power to the shields, protecting the most critical buildings. The pirates had expected an easy fight. Instead, they had awakened something dangerous, a battle like no other. Vere watched in awe as the humans fought like no species he had ever seen. The pirates had the advantage in numbers and firepower, but the humans had something greater. Determination. A squad of soldiers rushed toward a damaged tower. The enemy targeted them, but instead of running, the humans charged straight into the fire. One of them threw an explosive device, taking out an entire enemy squad. Another climbed onto a fallen structure, using it as cover while sniping targets with inhuman precision. Vere's team was frozen in shock. They are not afraid, Lurvek whispered. Vere's grip tightened. No, they are not. The turning point. Above them, the enemy ships hovered menacingly, preparing for a final attack. Ben's voice cut through the chaos. We can't let them escape. They'll bring reinforcements. A soldier nearby shouted, Sir, their main ship is vulnerable. If we take it down, the rest will scatter. Ben grinned. Then let's take it down. Vere was about to ask how. But before he could, he saw a group of humans running toward an artillery cannon. The cannon was damaged. It had been hit by the storm, and parts of it were barely holding together. And yet, the humans climbed onto it anyway. They worked under enemy fire, repairing it as bullets and energy blasts whizzed past them. One fell, but the others kept going. Within moments, the cannon powered up. A single massive blast shot into the sky. The enemy's main ship exploded. The aftermath. The remaining pirate ships fled, retreating into space. The battle was over. Vere exhaled, his heart pounding. The colony had taken serious damage. Dozens of structures were destroyed. Smoke filled the air. And yet, the humans. They smiled. Ben clapped a soldier on the back. Not bad. We'll rebuild by tomorrow. Vere couldn't believe it. You were just attacked. Your colony is damaged, and yet you are already thinking of rebuilding. Ben chuckled. Of course. This isn't the first time. Won't be the last. Vere had thought he understood humans before. He was wrong. They didn't fear destruction. They didn't fear storms. They didn't fear war. Because no matter what happened, they always stood back up. And that made them the most unstoppable force in the galaxy. The smoke still hung in the air, a reminder of the battle that had just ended. The pirate attack had failed. The colony had taken damage, but it still stood. Vere stood on the edge of the ruins, watching as humans did what they did best, rebuild. They should have been exhausted. They had survived a superstorm and an enemy attack in the same day. Any other species would have collapsed from exhaustion. But humans, they were already working. Soldiers helped lift broken walls. Engineers repaired power lines. Scientists collected data from the battle, already preparing defenses for the next attack. Viewer had fought in wars before. He had seen trained warriors and disciplined soldiers. But he had never seen this. No time to rest. Ben approached, wiping dust from his uniform. His face had a fresh cut, but he barely seemed to notice. "You're still here," he said, glancing at Viewer. Viewer's tail flicked. "I had to see how you survived." Ben smirked. "You think this is the first time we've dealt with something like this?" Viewer frowned. "You are saying this is normal?" Ben sighed. "We didn't come to this planet because it was easy. We knew it would try to kill us, and we knew someone else would try to take it from us." He looked around at his people, still working. "And we also knew we weren't going to let that happen." Viewer exhaled slowly. "Your colony was nearly destroyed." Ben shrugged. "We'll rebuild, stronger than before." It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't even optimism. It was certainty. A dark warning. A message crackled through Ben's communicator. "Commander, we captured one of the pirates. He wants to talk." Ben's eyes darkened. "Let's go." They reached the holding area, where a pirate, a tall reptilian warrior, was restrained. His armor was scorched, his weapons confiscated. But he still smiled. Ben crossed his arms. "You lost. What's so funny?" The pirate chuckled. "You think this is over, human?" Ben's expression didn't change. "I think you should start talking." The pirate's eyes glowed with amusement. "We weren't the only ones watching this planet. The warlords saw what you did here, and now they are coming." Viewer's blood ran cold. The warlords, the most feared conquerors in the galaxy. Entire civilizations had fallen before them. They attacked without mercy, leaving nothing behind. Ben stared at the pirate, his expression unreadable. "How long?" The pirate smirked. "Maybe a few days. Maybe a few hours." Ben didn't react. No fear. No panic. Just calculation. He turned to his officers. "Prepare the defenses. Reinforce the shields. Get every weapon online." Viewer stepped forward. "Ben, these are not common raiders. These are warlords. They have entire fleets. If they come here, they will not just attack. They will burn this world." Ben's gaze was like steel. "Let them try." Viewer was stunned. "You don't understand. Your people cannot win this fight." Ben's lips curled into a dangerous grin. That's what the pirates thought, too. The human way. The entire colony moved like a single mind. Civilians worked alongside soldiers. Every person had a job, and no one wasted a second. Engineers strengthened the walls. Scientists adjusted the shield frequencies. Snipers positioned themselves on rooftops, ready for an attack. Viewer had seen military bases prepare for war before, but this was different. "This is madness," Lurvek muttered beside him. Viewer slowly shook his head. "No, this is human." They didn't fight because they wanted to. They fought because they refused to give up. They fought because no one would take what was theirs, and that was why Viewer finally understood. The warlords were coming, but they had no idea what they were about to face. The air was thick with tension. The colony was ready. The warlords were coming. Viewer had never seen a planet prepare for war so quickly. The humans moved like a single unstoppable force. They had repaired the damaged walls, reinforced the energy shields, and set up traps across the battlefield. Ben stood at the center of it all, arms crossed, his eyes locked on the sky. Viewer stepped beside him. "You are certain about this?" Ben gave a small smirk. "Not certain, just prepared." The sky darkened. Then they arrived. The warlords' arrival. Massive warships pierced through the clouds, casting shadows over the colony. Their engines roared like thunder. These ships were larger than anything Kivare had ever seen. Fortresses in the sky, built for conquest. Kivare's officers tensed in fear. Even his own people, hardened warriors, had heard the legends of these warlords. Ben, however, simply lifted his communicator. All units, stand by. The warlords did not send a message. They didn't negotiate. They fired. A rain of plasma and missiles crashed down onto the colony. But the shields held. Barely. The battle begins. Return fire. Ben barked. The colony's defensive turrets roared to life. Anti-air cannons blasted into the sky, targeting enemy ships. Missiles shot upwards, exploding in bright flashes against the dark clouds. But it wasn't enough. The warlords had too many ships. More and more of them descended, landing outside the colony walls. Their ground forces poured out, massive armored warriors with weapons powerful enough to shatter mountains. Kivare's heart sank. This was a battle they couldn't win. Ben, however, was smiling. The trap is set. As the warlords charged forward, the humans didn't retreat. Instead, they waited. Then, Ben gave a single command. Now. Boom. The ground beneath the warlords exploded. Hidden mines buried in the dirt sent shockwaves through the battlefield. Entire squads were wiped out in an instant. Before the warlords could recover, human snipers opened fire. Precision shots took down their commanders first. Then the soldiers charged. Kivare washed in shock. Humans were running straight into the enemy. Outnumbered, outgunned, and yet, they didn't hesitate. A soldier with a heavy gun mowed down a group of warlords before they could react. Another jumped onto an enemy walker, planting explosives and jumping off just before it detonated. A warlord swung a massive blade at a human soldier, but instead of dodging, the soldier caught the blade with his cybernetic arm and shot the warlord point blank. It was madness. Glorious, terrifying madness. And the warlords weren't ready for it. The turning point. One of the enemy ships tried to escape the battle, likely to call for reinforcements. Ben saw it. Not today. He grabbed a rocket launcher and fired it himself. The missile struck the ship's engines. Flames erupted as the massive warship plunged into the ground. Kivare stared in disbelief. They were actually winning. The warlords, one of the most feared forces in the galaxy, were losing to a single human colony. And then, finally, they retreated. The aftermath. Silence fell over the battlefield. Smoke and fire filled the air. Bodies of warlords lay scattered across the ruins. But the humans still stood. Victorious. Ben exhaled, lowering his weapon. Around him, the soldiers cheered. Some were wounded. Some had lost friends. But they had done the impossible. Kivare turned to Ben. You knew you would win. Ben shook his head. No, we knew we wouldn't lose. Kivare's chest tightened. He had traveled across the stars, seen empires rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like this. Not strength, not technology. Just willpower. And that was more terrifying than any weapon. The unstoppable species. Later, as Kivare prepared to leave, he turned to Ben one last time. You are not like the other species in this galaxy, he said. Ben chuckled. Yeah, we get that a lot. Kivare shook his head. They call this a death world. They say no one should survive here. Ben's eyes burned with pride. We didn't survive. We conquered it. As Kivare's ship lifted off, he looked down at the human colony, a small, fragile place that had defeated an unstoppable enemy. And in that moment, he knew this was only the beginning. Because humans weren't just another species. They were something else entirely. And the galaxy would never be the same.